once again, folks, this is a good story for everybody. There's nothing illegal about being poor. Okay, I don't think there's anything illegal about not having money in your bank account, right?
Congressman Duncan Hunter reacts. The East County Republican talks about the charges against him related to campaign spending. How will the criminal case affect the campaign? Hunter's opponent talks to KPBS News about making this an issue in November.
Well, the idea of Space Force is a good idea in that it's putting emphasis in an area where we need additional emphasis placed because of the value of space.
A retired Navy officer talks about plans for a Space Force and what it will take to get the President Trump's idea off the ground.
And what happens if both measures fail?
I think we start over, but we start at a new place.
And how the proposal for the Mission Valley Stadium site will impact plans for a San Diego River Park. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. U.S. Representative Duncan Hunter is fighting back against charges of misusing campaign money. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with him today about the allegations against him and his wife.
Number one, I'm going to have an election. I'm not resigning.
Speaking with reporters after a fishing trip for wounded warriors, Hunter says allegations against him are false.
There's a trial. This means nothing. And the indictment is all they have. They only have what you've now seen. That's it. I've done nothing wrong, and I say bring the trial now.
Hunter and his wife were both indicted Tuesday on charges of wire fraud, falsification of records, and prohibited use of campaign contributions.
This is the U.S. government, what I would call the deep state, or folks in the U.S. government that don't care what the election does. They want to rig the election their own way.
Hunter is running for re-election this year. He says the Department of Justice is conspiring to flip the 50th Congressional District Democratic.
Yes. Are you joking? The DOJ is politically motivated. They're going to slam this thing in right now. They could have done this in the last two years.
The congressman said before becoming elected, he did not oversee his personal finances and instead relied on his wife to handle them.
It's my responsibility. It's my account and didn't have as much visibility on my personal finances as I should have.
Despite the allegations, Hunter remains confident. Can you prove that you've used personal funds?
We're going to court.
So you think you'll be able
And I'm going to win in court and win my election, and we'll see where we are, right?
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Hunter believes the local U.S. Attorney's Office is biased because one of its prosecutors attended a Hillary Clinton event. In a statement, a spokesperson reacted to Hunter's accusations, saying it reviewed and rejected Mr. Hunter's complaints. The Secret Service requested the prosecutor's attendance and routinely asked prosecutors to attend events involving their protectees. The indictment of Congressman Hunter is already impacting his work in Washington. House Speaker Paul Ryan said in a statement the charges against Representative Hunter are deeply serious. The Ethics Committee deferred its investigation at the request of the Department of Justice. Now that he has been indicted, Representative Hunter will be removed from his committee assignments pending the resolution of this matter. Those committees include Transportation and Infrastructure, Armed Services and Education, and the Workforce. Now that Duncan Hunter has been indicted, his Democratic challenger is speaking out. KPBS's Jade Hyman tells us Hunter's legal troubles may impact the race for the 50th Congressional District.
Well, Ebony, the 47-page indictment says for years, Duncan Hunter and his wife, Margaret, used campaign funds to bankroll a lifestyle well beyond their means. In a district that's heavily Republican, he is still expected to keep his congressional seat. But with an indictment now in the picture, his Democratic challenger, Amar Campa-Najjar, says his campaign is energized.
I'm running for everybody in this district, not just the resistors or the Trumpsters, but everybody. And I know that nothing in life is given. I didn't inherit a seat from my dad, and I didn't sell my votes to the highest bidders in Washington so I could live lavishly while the people in my district languish.
Democrat Amar Campa-Najjar says he will continue to focus on the issues.
My focus is to make sure not to take this for granted, and me and my supporters are going to be campaigning as if we're not running against a corrupt, indicted congressman.
The list of financial crimes in the indictment is long, but political scientist Carl Luna says federal charges won't necessarily cost Hunter the election.
It's still very likely that he will win in that district because it's so heavily Republican, and his name will be on the ballot, pretty much barring anything, come November. But if he ends up having to leave that seat, we could be well facing a special election sometime in the new year.
Campa-Najjar says the shakeup is all bittersweet.
And in a way, I'm a little bit saddened by it, and here's why. Because he did serve our country, and he fought the wars we waged abroad, so someone like me could even have the luxury to stand here and fight the ones we have at home. But somewhere along the way, I don't think that man ever came back from the battlefield. I think Washington chewed him up and spit him out.
Luna says Campa-Najjar will still have to win the votes of die-hard Republican voters who turn the other cheek when struck by corruption in their own party.
Both parties tend to prefer their own corruption to the other guy, thinking the other guy's evil, my guy's just corrupt. And that's a really negative thing in American politics.
Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
From trips overseas to a $500 bar tab for tequila shots, it's a long list of items the Hunters are illegally spending of campaign funds, are alleged to have spent of campaign funds. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragesser dug through the indictment and has more.
According to the indictment, the Hunters overdrew their bank account more than 1,100 times in 7 years, resulting in almost $38,000 in overdraft fees. It says they illegally converted and stole more than $250,000 in campaign funds to purchase goods and services for their personal use and enjoyment. Some examples of items the Hunters allegedly illegally used campaign funds on include more than $15,000 on airline tickets and hotel rooms for their family and a family pet. The San Diego Union Tribune previously reported this pet was a rabbit. More than $11,000 at Costco on a variety of items, more than $1,500 at Steam Games on video game charges, and more than $460 for 30 shots of tequila and 1 steak at a Mexican restaurant in Washington, D.C. In addition, the indictment details that in March 2015, Margaret Hunter told Duncan Hunter to buy Hawaiian shorts at a golf shop so they could claim the expense as, quote, some golf balls for the wounded warriors. In November 2015, it says Hunter tried to set up a tour of a Navy facility in Italy to justify use of campaign funds to pay for a family trip. When Navy officials said they could only provide a tour on a specific date, Hunter told his chief of staff, quote, tell the Navy to go blank themselves, using a swear word. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
The congressman's campaign account also has money issues. iNews Source reporter Jill Castellano has a closer look at the numbers.
The indictment filed against Duncan Hunter describes how the Alpine Republican and his wife have struggled with their personal finances and used Hunter's campaign dollars to help pay off their debts. The indictment says the couple's bank account was overdrawn on more than 1,000 occasions, resulting in more than $37,000 in fees. Hunter's re-election campaign account also has money issues. The campaign has spent more money than it's raised. As of June 30th, it has spent $1.2 million while only bringing in $850,000. And about half of the money he spent has been on legal services. The indictment could be a boost for Hunter's Democratic opponent in the November election, says UC San Diego politics professor Thad Kauser.
But it's opened up a significant opportunity for Mark Campa-Najjar, who now has the attention of the national media, the chance to get his story out so that people don't just see an unfamiliar name, but they see someone from their district. And this is also his chance to get donors excited because he needs the money to get his story out.
Hunter and his wife are scheduled to make their initial appearance in federal court Thursday morning. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Jill Castellano.
iNews Source is an independent nonprofit partner of KPBS. We will continue to follow this story on KPBS TV, radio, and online. You can find all of our coverage at kpbs.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a felony conviction and guilty plea from 2 men close to the president raise new legal questions for the Oval Office. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The San Diego County Sheriff's Department is investigating the death of a man in jail. Sheriff's officials say the man was found unresponsive in a cell at the Central Jail downtown early Tuesday morning. They also say there was no apparent sign of injury. The Sheriff's Department hasn't identified the man. He was 36 years old and being held on suspicion of a drug offense. State lawmakers have passed a bill that transforms California's bail system. It's just waiting for the governor's signature. The Money Bail Reform Act would eliminate cash bail for those who are not believed to be a threat to the public. Individual counties would have to set up their own systems to assess an individual's risk.
What happens is there are so many people who aren't a flight risk, who aren't a public safety risk, that don't have a few $100s and end up staying in jail. What's the consequence? You turn their lives upside down.
The counties don't have the resources for all of this assessment. They do not. Judges do not have time. Judges have already become the parole board.
Supporters of the bail reform say the current system unfairly punishes the poor. Critics say the bill will overwhelm the court system. A bill that erases or reduces marijuana convictions has also been approved. The state will identify thousands of eligible cases between 1975 and 2016. Local district attorneys will review each case. Supporters of the bill say it's needed to help people clear their records now that marijuana is legal for recreational use. Drive high and get a DUI. That's the message from health officials, advocates, and law enforcement officers who are joining forces in La Mesa. Police Lieutenant Brian Stoney says his force has seen a recent spike in the number of marijuana-impaired drivers.
Whether the drug is legally prescribed, marijuana, both recreational and medicinal, or illegal drugs, driving under the influence of drugs poses a threat to the driver, their passengers, and all of the other people who use our roadways.
In addition to the launching of the High Means DUI campaign, the group is urging tougher state laws for people who drive drugged. At a packed board meeting in Oceanside, Tri-City Hospital confirmed its decision to end services for those facing severe mental health issues. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John was there.
Well over 100 people showed up at Tri-City last night and begged the board to find a way to keep the psychiatric units open. Psychiatric nurses and about 80 others who'll lose their jobs accused the publicly elected board of reneging on its responsibility to the community. Oceanside City Councilman Jerry Kern says the closure will affect law enforcement all over North County.
The Sheriff's Office out of Vista and Encinitas, it affects the Police Department in Carlsbad, the Police Department in Oceanside. That's going to take officers out of service and to transport these patients down to Rosecrans. And so instead of taking them to Tri-City, we're going to take them out of the area. So we'll lose an officer for several hours depending on traffic.
But one emergency room doctor said trying to deal with the growing mental health challenge is affecting Tri-City's ability to deal with other health issues in the community. The board said no viable solutions have emerged to deal with costly facilities upgrades and a shortage of psychiatrists. The units are losing money, so they'll suspend operations in early October. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Tri-City Hospital will keep its unit open for a few more weeks to give the region time to adjust. Progress is being made on another major wildfire burning in Northern California. The Carr Fire started last month near Redding and burned more than 1,000 homes. 8 people died. It's among the top 10 most destructive fires in state history. CAL FIRE says the fire is now 93% contained. No major changes are expected in the weather. Julia Wyden has details in tonight's forecast.
Good evening. We continue to be under the influence of high pressure here in Southern California, which means more dry air. Now, we will be seeing a good amount of onshore flow from the Pacific, so coastal areas will be a little bit cooler at times, might see some extra cloud cover during the overnight and have to deal with a little bit more humidity, but farther inland and up into the higher elevations, expected to be staying rather dry. You can make out those showers way off to the east. They are going to be staying in that direction. They won't be really impacting us at all. A look at tonight's forecast. Oceanside dropping down to 67 degrees. Again, a bit of an increase in cloud cover at times at the coast, but but farther inland staying clear. Borrego Springs getting down to 77 degrees tonight. In San Diego, we'll see increasing cloud cover, temperature dropping down to 71. As we look ahead to tomorrow, again, high pressure remaining in control, so staying dry. That threat for rain and storms stays way off to the east. That monsoonal moisture out towards central and eastern portions of Arizona and throughout the Four Corners region. We will be seeing that cool onshore flow in the San Diego area, but becoming quite warm as we normally do this time of year, farther off to the east. High temp in San Diego, 81. Chula Vista, 78 degrees. Borrego Springs up to 106. Taking a look at what's in store for the weekend, it is more of the same around here. However, we will be seeing the jet stream taking this nice little dip on southward, so folks in the Pacific Northwest will be seeing much cooler temperatures along with a few showers. Dry around here, coastal areas in the upper 70s to the low 80s, clouds to start off your day and then some sun in the afternoon. Inland areas, temps will be in the mid 80s for the next several days, overnight lows in the low 60s. Mountainous regions, temps well into the 70s, overnight lows in the upper 50s. And in the deserts, we're looking at temperatures in the triple digits around 104 to 106, getting a little bit cooler into early next week. Back to you, Ebony.
The city of San Diego is now blocked from enforcing its rules on overnight parking and camping. The group Disability Rights California challenged the rules in federal court. Courthouse News Service reports a judge granted an injunction today. San Diego bans people from parking their vehicles overnight and using it as shelter. Repeat violators can have their vehicles impounded. San Diego city workers are quitting their jobs in greater number. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says unions think they know why.
San Diego voters passed Proposition B in 2012, eliminating guaranteed pensions for most new city employees. Since 2012, the number of city workers quitting their jobs has more than doubled, according to a recent analysis by the city auditor's office. It reached a high last year of about 388. Mike Zucchett heads the MEA, the largest city employee union.
Data that backs up what we've been seeing anecdotally for years now, which is it's been harder to recruit people and fill positions, and notably, and that's what this data focuses on, to retain them once they're at the city.
Zucchett says the city's recruitment and retention problems are made tougher by below-market salaries and a competitive job market. Supporters of Prop B say it was necessary to shore up the city's finances. The future of San Diego's pension reform is in doubt after the state Supreme Court this month found that the city broke state labor laws in placing it on the ballot. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Disney is investing millions of dollars to help its hourly employees advance their education. The new program will cover tuition costs for online classes. Disney workers can choose to pursue a college degree or a high school diploma. They can also simply take classes to learn a new skill. Disney is investing $50 million in the first year of the program, which is similar to those offered by Walmart and Starbucks. President Trump first raised the idea in San Diego. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says now analysts are trying to understand what Space Force might mean for the area's defense community.
It was a surprise when President Trump made the announcement in March at Miramar Air Station.
Maybe we need a new force. We'll call it the Space Force. And I was not really serious. And then I said, what a great idea. Maybe we'll have to do that.
Earlier this month, Vice President Mike Pence promoted the president's newly released 15-page outline for a new military service.
And the United States will not shrink from this challenge.
Charles Martoglio is a retired vice admiral who spent a lot of time in Washington. He teaches at UC San Diego.
There are a lot of questions that need to be answered about all of the things we need to understand before we commit the national resources to a Space Force.
Trump's plan set a 2020 deadline to stand up a brand new military force. But Martoglio says the real debate will be in Congress.
On one end is the Space Force. On the other end is continuing to do what we're doing, but putting additional dollars to it.
When the Trump campaign asked people to vote on the patch for what would be the military's sixth service branch, people questioned whether any of this was serious. Martoglio said some of these ideas have been talked about for a long time.
The idea of Space Force is a good idea in that it's putting emphasis in an area where we need additional emphasis placed.
The Air Force handles everything from missile defense to communication satellites. It will probably downsize if a new branch of the military takes over space. Martoglio says it's too early to tell if San Diego might lose SPAWAR or other high-tech Navy programs. He says they could see an influx of cash if space becomes the new budget priority, though the money will have to come from somewhere.
If money comes out of other programs, and San Diego has lots of conventional military forces, how does it affect them? How does it affect their day-to-day readiness?
So the next question is whether paying for Space Force means sailors and Marines will end up biting the bullet back here on Earth. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The San Diego River Park Foundation is taking a stand against Soccer City. Foundation President Rob Hutzel joined Eric Anderson to talk about the board vote and the vision for the River Park.
The vision has always been about 60 acres of the site should be dedicated to a river park. Now, what does that mean? About 10 acres of that area should be for the river, to heal the river, to give it, allow it to breathe, and to heal it with upland habitat and some things like that, just technical issues. And 50 acres of public parks. So that would include the regional San Diego River Trail, which would go through the site, and then all the parks that the community really needs.
And the idea is that this isn't just a park in isolation. It's part of a system that is intended to run along the whole river.
That's right, that's right. So 52 miles long is the river park. The city of San Diego is about a third of that. But this piece of property is really going to be the jewel. It's the most urban area. It's a very exciting area where we want people to actually celebrate the river. It needs to have water. It needs to be a place where you can go down and go, I'm along the river, and you get it right away.
Obviously, November is going to be an important time. Do you think that you're closer now than you've ever been to realizing this dream of a river park in that area?
I think so, because you know why? Both parties, if you want to think of it that way, are talking river park. It's actually in their names, right? And so we didn't have that when we started the organization 17 years ago. So we're really close. Now we just have to get to the finish line, and that'll be an interesting process to watch.
Why take a position on the initiatives?
Our board felt strongly. We've worked with the Soccer City folks for a long time, for over a year, and working on how do we take their initiative and get it to work to our position of 60 acres. The reality is what we worked on, they agreed to do that, but it wasn't binding. And we hoped the lease would come done by then, but we haven't seen a draft lease. And so we really felt compelled to take a position on this. And at the same time, many of our board members are just concerned about the initiative process for planning in itself, CEQA issues and just community planning.
Two of your board members are known opponents of the Soccer City initiative. How did you handle that conflict of interest?
Well, part of it's disclosure. I mean, the biggest part is let us know what the things are that either in reality or people might perceive are as a conflict. And so we went through an exhaustive process where we had a committee meeting, talked about all the members of the boards. And one of the things about our directors is they represent a really broad spectrum of people. They have conflicts. It's just the nature of what we do, and we want those people at the table because if we can bring them together for common ground, then we can move forward.
Do you understand where there might be criticism?
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know, the reality is these board members are civic leaders. They take positions on things, and that's the sort of people we want for our organization to be on our board.
When do you think that the vision for a river park in that stadium area will actually be realized?
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be long term. You know, just if you look at both of the initiatives, the process probably will be tied up maybe in legal battles. We're talking maybe 5-10 years out.
So you're not optimistic that it'll be 2 or 3 years?
No, I wish I could be, Eric. You know, it'd be wonderful to say we're going to turn dirt in December. Gosh, wouldn't that be wonderful? I've waited 17 years for that. But the reality is we just know San Diego. Things don't happen that quickly.
And what happens if both measures fail?
I think we start over, but we start at a new place. We've had a discussion in the community where both parties have said the river park is important. Both have agreed to the 60-acre number. So let's start from there. Then I think what we need to do is go back to the city council and say, how do we shape this going into the future? And in fact, the community plan for Mission Valley has a process where you're supposed to identify what are the public needs for that site. And let's identify that. The park is part of it. Maybe there's something else like a police station or fire stations or libraries, the rec center that would be included in that as well.
Rob Hutzel, President and CEO of the San Diego River Park Foundation, thanks for talking with us.
Thanks, Eric.
Now, here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells speaks out about the Duncan Hunter indictment. We'll hear his interview with host Rachel Martin. And on Midday Edition, taking care of the so-called gray tsunami, how the VA is mobilizing to support the growing number of aging veterans. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.